Nefertiti, Sumaramat, Eleanor, Isabella, Amina, Catherine, Victoria, Tsuchi, Liliuokalani, Tsuditu, Elizabeth. What do these women have in common? Each was a queen in the traditional sense, providing an heir. However, all these remarkable women went on to become leaders, politicians, patrons of art, culture, and education, and so much more. Medieval women were wives, mothers, mostly peasants, sometimes nuns, infrequently abbess, rarely queen. All women were educated by their female relatives in cooking, sewing, housekeeping, child-rearing, and gardening. Few received formal schooling or tutoring in real literature, that written in Latin. Formal schooling was controlled by the church and almost never allowed females. Aquitaine was the richest and largest province of France, more land than the French king possessed. The family had reigned over this region since 841, its title hereditary. Aquitaine was known as a center for many art forms, especially poetry, music, and literature. The King of France, Henry I, was concerned about the power and influence wielded by such a strong region. Eleanor was the only surviving child of William X and Eleanor, and as such inherited Aquitaine. 15 years of marriage to Louis VII produced 2 daughters. An annulment was granted due to consanguinity, but the lack of male heir, a rumored affair, and general hostility is more likely the reason. Less than 2 months later, Eleanor marries the Count of Anjou, soon to be Henry II of England. Over a 13-year period, Eleanor gives birth 8 times. 2 will become king, 1 daughter and granddaughter marry kings. Duchess of Aquitaine, Queen of France, Queen of England, and Regent of England, Eleanor lived a fascinating 82 years. She bore 10 children to 2 husbands over 21 years and was imprisoned by 1 for 16 years. Eleanor was a queen to 2 kings and a mother to 2 kings. No other monarch could ever match that accomplishment. Eleanor was the exception to many rules of medieval women. She was formally schooled, she retained control of her property after marriage, she divorced her first husband, and she was actively involved in politics. Eleanor was educated in her father's court in Aquitaine and Poitiers by tutors. It is well known that she could read Latin, having studied languages, literature, and philosophy, but the record is not clear if she could write. The court of Aquitaine cultivated poetry, music, and the arts, and as such she was well versed in each. She was taught to ride astride at a very young age. After her marriage to Louis VII, she continued to be involved in the management of her estates in Aquitaine. Responsible for maintaining peace and castle upkeep, she traveled throughout her lands visiting towns, businesses, and fiefs. She even provided troops for her husband's ill-fated crusade. Being an heiress and single was dangerous in medieval times. Less than 2 months after her divorce, Eleanor married Henry, Count of Anjou, and Duke of Normandy, the future King of England. Eleanor once again retained full control of her lands in Aquitaine. She continued the rounds of her inherited lands, governing as well as any man. With the failure of her second marriage due to Henry's infidelities, Eleanor spent more time in Poitiers. She was instrumental in turning the court of Poitiers, then frequented by the most famous troubadours of the time, into a center of poetry and a model of courtly life and manners. As a lover and patroness of various arts, she particularly enjoyed music and poetry concerning chivalry and courtly love. Eleanor is reputed to have encouraged a culture of chivalry among her courtiers that had far-reaching influence on literature, poetry, music, and folklore. Romance was not a literary genre. It referred to the vernacular French of Eleanor's court, called Romance, one of the languages derived from the spoken language of the Romans. Many historians consider Marie de France to be a protégé of Eleanor. Marie's proficiency in Latin, French, and English enabled her to write The Legend of the Purgatory of St. Patrick, translate Aesop's Fables, and author L'Ai of Marie de France. Marie de France is a nom de plume for one of her published works. Her real name is unknown. Having survived 2 husbands and all but 2 of her children, Eleanor moved to Fontevraud Abbey in the Loire Valley. Like many aristocratic women of her time, she chose to retire to a religious community in her latter years, seeking sympathy and spiritual comfort. Made Duchess and married in 1137, divorced and married again in 1152, widowed in 1189. Eleanor retired to a convent in 1199, where she died in 12,004. Eleanor is buried next to her husband Henry II with her son Richard the Lionheart at their feet. As early as 1928, Eleanor has been seen in movies. She is portrayed as wife, mother, regent, and lover. Eleanor, a strong individual, has been played by equally strong women. Glenn Close, Eileen Atkins, Pamela Brown, and Katharine Hepburn are just a few. The extent of Eleanor's role in Henry's rule is largely unknown, although it seems unlikely that a woman of her reputed energy and education would have been wholly without influence. After the death of Henry, she prepared Richard for coronation, administered the realm in his absence, secured his ransom and release, and arranged politically advantageous marriages for all her daughters. She had a flair for politics. "You can't be what you can't see" is a famous quote about women in leadership by Marie Wilson. In the U.S., women comprise less than 25% of the political leaders. Among that group of women elected officials, women of color and young women are underrepresented. Eleanor would have approved of the Running Start program with its mission to inspire and train the next generation of young women political leaders. Running Start offers programs for high school girls and college women, enabling them to gain the skills needed to feel confident and ready to lead through participation in several programs. The Young Women's Political Leadership Program is a week-long retreat covering public speaking, messaging, networking, media training, and platform development with a goal of encouraging women to channel their leadership into politics. Elect Her, Campus Women Win teaches college women the importance of running for office and encourage active participation in student government. Running Start Walmart Star Fellowship allows college women to learn about politics firsthand, working in the office of a woman in Congress. Imagine what Eleanor could have done with this kind of training. "Lady, I am yours, and yours shall be. Vow to your service constantly. This is the oath of fealty I pledged to you this long time past. As my first joy was all in you, so shall my last be found there too, so long as life in me shall last.